Several prisons and jails throughout the country have switched to a computer system that is beyond faulty. So faulty that after people deal with their arrest warrants, after people are adjudicated and their situation is supposed to go away, the computer system doesn't register it, and then they get badgered and harassed by police officers. And so the latest case has to do with Tennessee. In fact, the Shelby County Correctional Center in Tennessee is facing a class action lawsuit, but this is not the only correctional center facing a class action lawsuit. There are places in California and various other states that use the exact same system and ran into a number of problems. People ended up spending weeks behind bars when they weren't supposed to, sometimes for minor infractions, in most cases after they haven't even been found guilty or convicted of anything. I'll give you one example. This is out of Tennessee. Plaintiff Lakeisha McCoy claims the faulty computer system caused a warrant for her arrest to be acted on multiple times after she paid her bond for an alleged parole violation and was released from police custody. However, the computer system allegedly never registered her release. A few days later, police were back banging on her window, according to the suit, and tried to re-arrest her several times. So there, again, have been complaints about this for quite some time now. The computer system that they're using is known as the Odyssey Case Management System. And the officials at this particular correctional facility were warned that it was deeply flawed and they would run into problems, but they decided to utilize it anyway. And I guess the big selling point is that this computer system is supposed to improve communications with other correctional facilities in other states, but so far we've only seen the downsides.
Yeah, I think that example that you shared points to one of the many downsides, which is just increased police encounters. That escalation can be deadly in certain communities, right? I don't want to be an alarmist about that, but it's a very grave reality. I think also in terms of the lawsuits, I feel the citizens are on the hook for this, right? Yeah. Ultimately, something that could have been remedied, right? Because there were warnings that we end up paying for it, right? All of these police mistakes, the citizens end up having to pay for it, which is problematic.
And you also pay for, the resources that it takes to keep someone behind bars.
Right.
By the way, what I read you as an example was bad, but there are cases that are even worse. The computer system registered completely innocent people as sex offenders in some cases.
Wow.
Yeah. And then also keep in mind, if you're in jail when you are not supposed to be in jail for a week, 2 weeks, you're away from your job. You are away from your family. You could lose your job. In most cases, you will lose your job if that happens. And so it's just devastating for the lives of all these innocent people who dealt with consequences that they didn't deserve. Yeah. And if the correctional facility was warned ahead of time, and there were stories dating back to 2 years ago that this was gonna happen, then why were they so nonchalant about that, right? You're toying with people's lives. We should have as much thought, and people should be as careful as possible before switching over to a new system, especially when it deals with, the criminal justice system.
Well, because in America, if you are imprisoned or you're convicted or you're arrested, you automatically lose some sense of your citizenship. You're either a second-class citizen or you descend even further down, right? If you have a felony, you can't vote anymore. So there's a stigma attached to being a part of the criminal justice system as somebody who has been convicted or criminalized as something, right? So their lives are disposable, right? So they probably didn't even act as quick as they could have in those circumstances where somebody is supposed to be held for 2 days and then held for 2 weeks. And I'm sure he protested against it, and I'm sure they ignored his claims. And the woman who had already paid bond was repeatedly told to pay for a bond she had paid that long time prior. But again, they're viewed as not trustworthy because they've had this encounter with the criminal justice system. And again, I should just also divulge, because I am actually a prison abolitionist. So I know that takes me to a far left side, but in these sort of circumstances, holding people longer, making them pay, this doesn't solve those issues at hand. It doesn't solve the issue of preventing somebody from coming back into the system and keeping them longer. I mean, this is why Odyssey Case Management System ends up becoming the logic, because they have such a huge tentacle that some sort of system is needed, like you said, to have some sort of coordination, because it's just so massive.
It is, it is. And we do imprison more people than any other country in the world. And our recidivism rate is incredibly high. We have repeat offenders, and it's because a lot of times nonviolent people get locked away, and they learn criminal habits while they're behind bars, because you, unfortunately, in some cases, need those habits to survive, right? I think the most, in my opinion, the best example of how society looks at prisoners as throwaways is how Congress, even now, refuses to address the issue of prison rape, right? They just refuse to address it. They don't care, right? And I don't know if it's a strong and unfair thing to say that Americans don't care, but prison rape is common. Everyone knows that it happens, and nothing's ever done about it because they're looked upon as untrustworthy, as the throwaways of society.
And if you do anything to your jumpsuit, you can be convicted of vandalism to public property.
Yeah,
sure. So, I mean,
prison is an industry, right?
No,
So,
it definitely is one.
Yeah, we benefit from mass incarceration, so we aren't going to do anything to remedy those issues.
Young Turks now has over 6 billion lifetime views. You know who did that? You did that. We're now larger than CNN, ABC, you name a news network online, we're larger than them. And you built all that as everyone scoffed and didn't believe. And here we are, guys, thanks to you. Build independent media together with us at tytnetwork.com/join.